1/3 of farmers have quit in the United States. That's got to be clickbait. Actually, it's not. The American Farm Bureau Federation did a survey, and they found 37% of American farmers are having to plow under crops due to persistent drought. Yes, they have just found out that of the respondents, 37% of the farmers are saying that they've had to plow under at least some of their crops. That's a big number, folks. Also, more troubling is 1/3 of farmers with multi-year crops like orchards or grapes have had to destroy some of their trees or plants this year. That's big news, folks. That's big news. This is 13% higher, that 37% number, 13% higher than last year. Are we having a significant shortfall of food production this year? And the answer to that is, according to that survey, we're hearing very, very troubling things. We can't just grow less food around the whole planet and still have just as much food as we always have. I know a lot of people want to do the ostrich thing and stick their heads in the ground and just pretend like nothing's happening. But folks, this is big, big news. And what a lot of people don't realize is that a lot of the future harvest of wheat and corn and soybeans in the United States has already been sold. It's been sold to Dragon Country. It's been sold to other people. It's been contracted out. The food you eat has maybe not been contracted yet. So when they go to market and it's all been bought up already because they were expecting to have this much and they sold a bunch of it already and they only have this much, there's very little margin there of food ready to be sold. Folks, the further away people are from the United States and dependent upon our food crops, the more likely they are to lock in long-term contracts. And Dragon Country has seen these food shortages coming, and they've locked in some pretty large long-term contracts. So even though they've bought up some 60-some% of the world's grains, they've still bought a whole bunch of this coming year's grains from the United States. Wheat, corn, soybeans, barley, all these crops out there that we grow a lot of, they've already bought up. Will there be enough left for us? I know a lot of us see these massive farms that are feeding not only us, but are also feeding the world, and we tell ourselves that when that time comes, if there's a food shortage, our government leaders will shut down exports. Well, we haven't in the past, and it might be really hard to do that. And honestly, they're going to probably ship a whole lot of food out of the country before anything like that happens. 60% of the West, South, and Central Plains areas of the United States are in drought. Is it any surprise that a lot of these farmers are having to plow their crops under because they're just so subpar? They are not getting the harvest they need in order to even make it worth continuing to grow the crops to time for harvest. And so we're seeing a lot of crops being plowed under for insurance purposes and for trying to fertilize the soil for next year. South and Central Plains just saw the third hottest July on record. All this is impacting crops. The water shortages out in Colorado and the Colorado River and out in California, that they're not allowing the water to be used to water and irrigate crops. In Texas, there's a whole river valley where they said that they would not allow the next rotation of crops to be watered, and so the farmers were given warning not to plant because they weren't going to get any irrigation water. We're hearing this again and again all over the place, where the rice growing areas of the United States, California and Arkansas, both those are central in these droughts. India did not get enough rain during the monsoon season, and so it looks like the rice there is going to have a very bad harvest. Rice is going to go into shortages. We're already hearing potato shortages out there because of a bad harvest last year, and we haven't gotten word on what this year is going to look like yet because, of course, that hasn't been harvested yet. And But if you haven't noticed, potatoes are under the ground. So we don't know how that harvest is going, but with the temperatures the way they are and the water the way it is, it might be a subpar harvest again for potatoes. Time will tell, but we need a big harvest to kind of pull us out of some of these things. 74% of farmers are reporting a reduction in harvest this year in the United States. Are these numbers startling to you? Are you wondering why you haven't heard this on the CNNs, the NBCs, the Fox Newses out there? You're not hearing this stuff, and you're coming to channels like this where we're like, hey, these are actually the numbers. This is what we're hearing. This is what farmers are talking about. If you don't have farmer friends and you don't have people who are keeping an eye on what's going on across the board, you're not hearing this stuff unless you're listening to channels like this one. 74% of farmers are reporting a reduction in harvest this year. 50% of the nut and fruit tree farmers in California have already removed plants or trees. It takes a long time to grow nut trees, but because they're being cut off from irrigation and water, they are plowing over, they're knocking over their trees, they're cutting them down because they can't keep them alive. And that space is valuable. Then they put in lower water intensive crops. We get most of our fruits and nuts come from California. I know that sounds cliche, but it's actually surprisingly literally true. Not just the fruits and nuts of people, but the fruits and nuts of fruits and nuts also come from California. And they don't have water out there. That means your fruits and the pistachios, the almonds, all that is going to be impacted dramatically over these coming months because they're losing these crops. They're losing the trees that these grow on. Also, it's going to be a very bad wine year because I know it's not something to whine about, but wine is going to be bad in grape juice because a lot of that comes from the Napa Valley over there in California. Across the board, we're seeing food shortage is coming towards us. The food shortages are real. 2022 is going to be a very bad year for this. And we're looking at empty shelves across the board on many, many different products. And this is stacking up and it's going to hit us again and again. What we're dealing with right now is the bad harvest from last year. That's what's showing up on the store shelves. When we hit this bad harvest this year, if it's as bad as it's projecting to look like in a lot of crops and such, we're going to have a huge impact next year when we get to the end of our supplies. Who's going to choose not to eat? And do we have volunteers to not eat for a while? We're going to be at a place where our country and other countries around the world are going to have to make some tough choices about who gets food and who doesn't. How about you make the choice now and you stock up on food right now? Get yourself over to the Walmart or you get yourself online, start ordering some rice, get yourself some beans. I've actually moved over to using tubs as opposed to 5-gallon buckets because it's just so much cheaper to get the totes. You can go that route if you want to as well. It doesn't keep as long, but just move yourself in the direction of becoming more self-sufficient. If you're trying to get canned protein, I am suggesting canned Spam and generic Spam. That's the cheapest meat out there to kind of stock up. Canned chicken was the thing, but it got just way too expensive, so I'm stocking up on generic Spam and regular Spam. There's some good deals out there. I just saw a great deal through Prepping Deals. Whatever it is. I see that on Facebook sometimes. They had canned Spam on Amazon for like $2 a can. I think it was like 12-can case. But that was actually quite a good deal. $2 a can for Spam is really good. So there's deals out there. You need to shop for them. Can your own meat or find your meat somewhere. Get lay up canned vegetables or grow your own vegetables and can them. Whatever you do, stockpile some extra food. Get your prepper pantry going, because preppers are the ones who are going to come out of this shining, because they actually have what they need, and they won't need to bow down and dance whatever tune is being played in order to get their rations. Okay, folks? If you like this video, you might want to check out this video right here. Otherwise, I will see you later. Steve Poplar, out.